They laughed when I said I was marrying a mechanic. My mother said I was throwing my life away. My name is Emily Carter, and I grew up in a small town in Ohio, in what most people would call a respectable family. My dad ran a small accounting firm. My mom worked as a real estate agent, and my sister Olivia was the golden child. Perfect grades, expensive clothes, and a fiancé with a doctor's degree. Then there was me, the one who didn't want law school, didn't care about fancy dinners, and loved getting her hands dirty. That's probably why I fell for Ryan Matthews. Ryan was everything my parents didn't want for me. He was a mechanic at a local garage, always smelling faintly of motor oil and coffee, always with that shy smile that made my heart skip. He didn't have a college degree, but he had dreams, and more than that, he had kindness. The first time I brought him home, my mother nearly dropped her wine glass. "Emily," she whispered that night, "he works with his hands. Do you really think that's the life you want?" I remember laughing nervously. "Mom, it's not about what he does, it's who he is." But my mother didn't listen. My dad barely said a word to Ryan that evening, and my sister Olivia wouldn't even make eye contact. When Ryan left, Mom sat me down and said, "You're too young to throw away your future. Men like that don't build lives, they survive them." That was the first time I felt truly small in my own house. But Ryan, he didn't care about what people said. He'd bring me flowers he couldn't afford, fix my car without asking, and talk about the small auto shop he wanted to open one day. His optimism was contagious. So when he proposed to me, under an old oak tree behind his garage, with a cheap silver ring and nervous hands, I said yes without hesitation. My family, however, didn't take it so kindly. When I told them, my sister actually laughed. "Emily, are you serious? A mechanic? What are you going to live on? Spark plugs and oil changes." Mom just stared at me, her eyes cold. "If you go through with this," she said, "don't expect us to bail you out when it all comes crashing down." And my dad? He didn't even show up to the wedding. We got married in a courthouse. Just me, Ryan, and his best friend as a witness. No fancy dress, no flowers, no music. I wore a white summer dress I bought from a thrift shop, and honestly, I'd never felt happier. For the first few months, life was beautiful. We rented a small apartment above his workshop. Every night we'd cook cheap pasta, laugh over bad movies, and dream about a future that felt light years away. But love doesn't pay bills. Ryan's hours got cut when the garage owner fell sick. I lost my office job when the company downsized. Suddenly, we were behind on rent. The fridge was half empty, and those dreams started to feel heavier. One night, Ryan came home late. His hands were blistered, face smeared with grease. He'd been working side gigs, fixing cars in parking lots just to buy groceries. I cried that night, not because of the struggle, but because I hated how hard he was trying for me. When I called my mom for help, she didn't even let me finish. "I warned you," she said coldly. "Come back home, leave him. You can still fix this mistake." I hung up. That was the last time I spoke to her for years. Things got worse before they got better. Our landlord raised the rent, and Ryan's car broke down. There were nights we went to bed hungry. But Ryan never complained, not once. Instead, he'd say, "It's okay, Em. This isn't forever. I'm gonna make something of myself, you'll see." And somehow I believed him. One night, while scrolling through Craigslist, Ryan found a rundown garage for sale, an old two-bay shop just outside of town. The price was low because it had been abandoned for years. It was a crazy idea. We didn't have the money. But Ryan looked at me with that spark in his eyes, the same spark I fell in love with, and said, "If we don't bet on ourselves, no one ever will." So we did something wild. We sold my engagement ring, borrowed from a friend, and bought that broken-down shop. The roof leaked, the floor was cracked, and the sign outside barely hung on, but it was ours. We worked day and night, painting, fixing, cleaning. I helped with paperwork, learned to manage clients, even got my hands dirty fixing engines beside him. It was hard, brutal sometimes, but it was ours. We called it Matthew's Auto Repair. At first, no one came, but one night a truck driver broke down on the highway. Ryan fixed his engine in the middle of a thunderstorm, for free. The next day, the driver came back with 3 more clients. Within months, we had a steady stream of work. People loved Ryan's honesty and skill. Slowly, we were paying off debts, saving a little, and smiling again. I'll never forget the day Ryan handed me our first business license, signed and sealed. He said, "See, Em? Told you this wasn't forever." That night, we stood in front of our tiny shop, the sun setting behind us, the smell of motor oil in the air, and for the first time, I didn't feel like we were barely surviving. We were building something real, but life has a funny way of circling back. Because one day, as Ryan was closing the shop, a familiar car pulled into the lot. A shiny black SUV, and out stepped my sister, Olivia. She looked just as polished and perfect as ever. Designer bag, flawless hair. But the panic in her eyes told another story. "Emily," she said quietly, "we need to talk." When I saw Olivia standing in front of our garage that evening, I froze. It had been almost 4 years since I'd last seen her. Back then, she was the family's pride. The sister with a perfect husband, a big house, and a life that looked like something out of a magazine. Now, under the fading light of the Ohio sunset, she looked different. Tired, pale, nervous. Ryan was still wiping grease from his hands when she glanced at him and hesitated. "I didn't know where else to go," she said softly. I folded my arms. "What's wrong, Olivia?" She looked down, her voice cracking a little. "It's Daniel. He lost his job. We're behind on mortgage payments. The car won't start. I didn't know who else could help." I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because of how impossible it all felt. This was the same sister who once told me, "Emily, you'll regret choosing a man with oil stains over a man with a Rolex." Now here she was, standing in front of my husband, the mechanic she used to mock, asking for help. Ryan stepped forward before I could say anything. His voice was calm, steady. "Bring the car tomorrow. I'll take a look. No charge." Olivia's eyes filled with relief. "Thank you. Really, thank you." I didn't say a word. I just watched as she drove away in that broken-down SUV, my mind replaying every cruel thing she'd ever said about him. That night, as we sat on the couch, Ryan turned to me and said, "You okay?" I shrugged. "I just can't believe she came here." He smiled gently. People change when they need help. Doesn't mean we have to hold it against them." I stared at him, the same man they'd called a mistake, and wondered how he could still be so kind. But that was Ryan. He'd always been the better person. The next morning, Olivia showed up early. Her SUV barely made it into the lot before coughing out its last breath. Ryan opened the hood, and after a few minutes said, "It's the alternator. I can fix it today." Olivia stood awkwardly near the office door. She looked around, at the clean bays, the steady flow of customers, the new sign that read, "Matthews Auto and Service Center." It wasn't a small-town garage anymore. Ryan had expanded, bought the neighboring lot, hired employees, even partnered with a parts supplier in Cleveland. "You guys really did this?" she asked quietly. I nodded. "Every inch of it." She smiled faintly. "Mom and Dad never believed you'd make it. They said you'd come begging for help." I raised an eyebrow. "And look how that turned out." She didn't respond. Just looked down at her manicured hands, shame written all over her face. When Ryan finished the repair, Olivia tried to pay him. He refused. "Consider it a favor," he said. "We all hit rough patches." But as she drove away, I knew this wasn't the last we'd hear from her. And I was right. A week later, my mom called. I almost didn't pick up, but curiosity got the better of me. "Emily," she said, her voice brittle. "We need to talk." Turns out Dad's accounting firm had gone under. A client sued them, and the business was gone overnight. They'd mortgaged their house to keep it afloat, and lost that too. Now they were staying in a cheap apartment, struggling to pay bills. For a moment, I didn't know what to say. The same parents who once told me I'd ruin the family name by marrying a mechanic now needed my help to keep their lights on. Ryan, of course, didn't even hesitate. "They can stay in the upstairs unit," he said. "It's empty anyway." I stared at him. "Ryan, are you serious? After everything they said?" He smiled faintly. "You said once you married me because you believed I had a good heart. Let's prove you were right." And just like that, he let them move into the apartment above our shop. The first time Mom saw Ryan again, she couldn't even look him in the eye. She tried to act polite, but I saw the guilt behind her smile. "Ryan," she said awkwardly, "you've done very well for yourself." He nodded politely. "We've been lucky." But luck had nothing to do with it. He'd worked 16-hour days, 7 days a week, for years. He'd built this from nothing, while they watched from their high place, laughing. Now they were living under his roof. Months passed. Ryan's business exploded. He opened another branch in Columbus, hired new staff, and started taking contracts from insurance companies. His name was on billboards and people respected him. Meanwhile, my sister's husband couldn't find steady work. Mom and Dad were still struggling. So when Ryan posted job openings at his new office, admin, finance, front desk, guess who applied? My mom. When I saw her name in the inbox, I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She'd written a long, formal email, pretending not to know the owner personally. Ryan read it, smiled, and said, "If she's qualified, why not give her a chance?" "Ryan," I said, "you don't owe them anything." He looked at me, that calm warmth in his eyes. "Maybe not, but I want them to see who you believed in when no one else did." So he hired her. My mother, the same woman who once called him a phase, was now working behind his desk, answering phones and scheduling appointments for the mechanic she disapproved of. Sometimes I'd catch her watching him through the glass office window, her expression mixed with guilt and awe. She'd try to make small talk, but Ryan always stayed professional. And honestly, that stung her more than any cruel words could. One evening, when everyone had left, she came to me with tears in her eyes. "Emily," she said softly, "I was wrong. About him, about you, about everything. I didn't know what to say. I'd waited years to hear those words. But when they finally came, they didn't feel like victory, just closure." I smiled a little. "I know, Mom, it's okay." She shook her head. "No, it's not. You deserved better from us." I wanted to believe her, but part of me still remembered the laughter, the insults, the way they turned their backs when we needed them most. Forgiveness doesn't erase the past. It just makes it lighter to carry. That night, Ryan came home exhausted but smiling. "We got the contract with the city," he said. "It's official. We're expanding to 3 new locations." I hugged him, proud and overwhelmed. All those years of struggle, all the nights we went to bed hungry, it had all led here. But deep down, I knew this story wasn't over yet. Because as much as my mom had changed, my sister hadn't. And the next chapter of our revenge story started with her. When I said my mother had changed but my sister hadn't, I didn't realize just how true that would become. Because as Ryan's business grew, so did Olivia's resentment. It started small. Snide comments here and there. Little digs disguised as jokes. At family dinners, she'd say things like, "Wow, Emily, must be nice having a mechanic-turned-millionaire husband." Or, "Guess I married the wrong man, huh?" At first I ignored it. But then she started asking questions. Too many questions. "How much do you pay your employees? Who handles your finances? Do you use a specific vendor for your contracts?" Ryan always brushed it off, trusting her good intentions. But I knew that tone. It was the same one she used years ago when she wanted something she didn't deserve. One afternoon, I walked into the office and found her sitting at my mother's desk, going through files. "Olivia?" I asked. "What are you doing?" She jumped like she'd seen a ghost. "Oh, I was just looking for Mom's notebook. I must have opened the wrong folder." Her voice was too quick. Her smile too fake. Later that night, I told Ryan. He didn't want to believe she'd do anything wrong. "Em?" he said gently. "It's your sister. She's probably just curious." But my gut said otherwise. And I was right. 2 weeks later, Ryan got an email from a parts supplier he'd been negotiating with, a huge deal that could double his profits. The email said another company had contacted them first, offering slightly cheaper rates and trying to take over the contract. The company's name? Olive & Auto Solutions. It didn't take long to figure out what had happened. Olivia's husband, Daniel, had started a fake auto consulting company, and Olivia had fed him Ryan's business contacts. She'd used her access to steal files and undercut Ryan's bids. When Ryan found out, he didn't yell. He didn't even look angry. He just sat there silent, his hands folded on the desk. Finally, he said, "We'll handle this the right way." He contacted his lawyer, pulled the security footage from the office, and printed every document Olivia had emailed from her work account. It was all there. Timestamps, attachments, everything. The next day, he called my mother into the office. She looked terrified. "What's going on?" Ryan handed her the papers. "Your daughter tried to sabotage our company," he said quietly. "I'm pressing charges." My mother's face went white. "No, Ryan, please. She didn't mean to." "She did," I interrupted. My voice was steady, but my heart was racing. "And she almost succeeded." Mom started crying. "Please don't ruin her life." I looked at her for a long moment. Then I said, "You all had no problem ruining mine when I married him." Ryan didn't send Olivia to jail. though he could have. Instead, he did something far smarter. He bought her company. Olive & Auto Solutions was just a name on paper. They had no real clients, no funding. Ryan made a few calls, bought the business rights, and turned it into one of his subsidiaries. And then he hired her. That's right, Olivia, my once perfect, arrogant sister, now works as a receptionist at Matthews Automotive Holdings. Under the man she said wasn't good enough for me. The first day she came to the new office, I almost felt bad for her. Almost. She sat quietly at the front desk, avoiding my eyes. Ryan treated her kindly but firmly. No favoritism, no small talk. Just business. He even gave her the same hourly wage as everyone else. Mom still works upstairs in administration, trying every day to rebuild her dignity. Dad helps with accounting part-time. The same man who once refused to attend my wedding now files payroll reports for my husband's company. It's poetic, really. Sometimes I sit in my office, the same one where I used to dream about being respected, and I think about how far we've come, how love built what pride tried to destroy. Last week, Ryan called everyone into the main floor for an announcement. We'd landed a new government contract, our biggest one yet. He stood on the small stage, smiling, his arm around me. 10 years ago, he said, this business started with one broken-down garage and one person who believed in me when no one else did. The employees cheered, but my eyes found my mother's in the crowd, red, teary, proud. And Olivia's, quiet, humbled, lost in thought. Ryan continued, that person is my wife, Emily, and everything we've built, we built together. The room erupted with applause, but all I could do was cry. Because for years they called me foolish. They said I'd made the worst mistake of my life. And yet standing there beside him, hearing my name in front of dozens of employees, including my own family, I realized something powerful. I didn't need revenge. Life had already handed it to me. That evening, after everyone left, Mom came to my office again. I'm proud of you, she whispered. And of him. You both proved us wrong. I smiled gently. You didn't believe in us, Mom, but he did. That's why we made it. She nodded, wiping tears. Maybe. We needed to learn the hard way. Before she left, I asked her something I'd been holding in for years. Do you still think I threw my life away? She shook her head slowly. No, sweetheart. You built one. Later that night, I walked through the workshop. The lights were dim, the smell of metal and oil still thick in the air. Ryan was at his desk typing up reports. He looked up when I walked in. Everything okay? He asked. Yeah, I said softly. Just thinking about how far we've come. He smiled that same shy smile from all those years ago, the one that started everything. Still glad you married the poor mechanic, he teased. I laughed, kissing his forehead. Best decision I ever made. He chuckled. Funny how life works, huh? I looked toward the upstairs windows, where my family now worked under the same roof that once belonged only to us. Yeah, I said quietly. Funny how tables turn. Please like and share this video and comment.